what we're going to be talking about here is basically setting up your website for SEO in 2021. After this conversation, you're going to be able to walk away knowing what you need to do with your website.
I'm Wayne. I've been in SEO now for around 3 years, and it all started when I worked for a dental marketing company here in Canada. I was basically, I got in very entry level, and I started to do a lot of the basic foundational work, working with some very experienced SEOs, learning from some of the best. And so I started working on those kind of local dentists across the country. I then made the transition over here to Merged. I've been with Merged for 2 years now, and I head up the department in SEO. So it's
has
now
it been 2 years already? 2 years.
It has. I know.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
It really does. I don't know how you guys have put up with me for 2 years, but kudos. So it's been 2 years, and no, I head up the department here in Merged, and it's my job to make sure that everything is set up correctly, set up smoothly, and that we get off to the best possible start with the SEO campaigns by making sure that you do the right things at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think talking about right at the beginning, like I said, a lot of people out there might be starting a new business and they need a domain name. So, what are some tips or things that people should be aware of when they go to choose that domain name?
No, absolutely. That's a very, a great question. And, it's the first point that I've got on my list here as well is that domain. So a couple of points that you want to be wary of is you want to make sure that domain accurately reflects the business that you are in. Okay. So, for example, if you are a local realtor and you have in your domain something that's related to soccer, obviously it doesn't make any kind of sense at all. So you're going to want to have something that is related to your business. Also, something that does really help is that if you know, or if you have a good understanding of what that primary keyword is going to be that you are looking to go for, integrating one of those primary keywords into the domain, if possible, is a very good way to go about it. If you own a landscaping company and the name of your landscaping company was Wayne's Landscaping, well, I'm going to want to have the word landscaping in the domain if I can. It's a keyword that I've already naturally been able to put into that domain. It's something that is going to send a signal to Google that says that, okay, well, the domain is landscaping, so it's probably something to do with landscaping. So, if you can naturally fit that in there, that is always going to be, a benefit.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, we work with Canadian Real Estate Wealth Magazine, Canadian Real Estate Magazine.ca is a domain, and it helps a lot in terms of getting a lot of traffic from Google just by simply having such a great domain that a lot of people are searching for.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we'll keep it high level, but if you do know anything about SEO and you do have the ability to pick up a domain that has been dropped, there is value in dropped domains. That's a whole different kettle of fish, and I'm not going to get crazy into that, but you can do a little bit of research on it. But
is there a way? How can somebody go and find these domains? Do we know that? Is there? I guess you could Google it, right?
You could Google it, but the Canadian Internet Registry, you could go to their website. You can see the kind of if you scroll to the bottom, or you can have a look on in the navigation in the services at the top. There is a dropped domains or to be released domains section. You can go on there and you can obviously pick up domains from there. Now it just tells you what they are. There are plenty of other services that you can use to actually go and purchase that domain, but you can identify the domains that are going to drop. And that's one way, and that's a very common and very quick and down and dirty way that you can take a look to pick up some of those domains. You're going to have to run them through tools and stuff like that to figure out whether there is any kind of value there, but that's where you would find them to then start doing the work on that.
Awesome. Cool. Now, next I have on my list here is talking about web hosting providers. Is this something that's important for people to be in 2021? Should people care about the provider that they're with? What are some things that people should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest thing is that you want to have a web provider that is operating as locally to you as possible. Okay. So for example, we're here in Canada. If I have my web provider in the UK, well, their servers are over in the UK. If I have it even in the US, they're in the US. So basically what's going to happen with that is it's going to take it just a little bit longer, and it's going to slow the website down just a little bit. Okay. Now, if I had that in Canada and I'm a Canadian business, It makes a lot of sense. I'd much rather have it in Montreal if I'm in Ontario than have it in California if I'm in Ontario. Again, it's just going to enable us to make that website speed just a little bit quicker.
Yeah, and that's because basically you're calling somebody in Canada might be searching for your Canadian site, and then it would have to go to a hosting company over in UK, firing it back to Canada, and it's just that extra second of delay, right? Okay, that makes total sense.
It makes all the difference. It really does. I mean, I'm sure that we're going to get into this a little later in the conversation, but page speed is a huge part of SEO right now. User experience and page speed is a huge part of what's hot in SEO right now. So you want it to be as quick as possible. And one thing that I would say is that choosing the most expensive hosting company isn't always the best to do. Okay, there have been kind of various independent reviews that have been done of hosting companies, and some of the mid-range ones have actually been providing the best possible results. So more expensive isn't always better.
For anybody that has questions about hosting, we actually just launched our dashboard for hosting. So if you have any questions or want a Canadian hosting company, you can talk to Merged. We can help you out with that. Next, in terms of, which is probably the most important part of the initial stages of an SEO campaign, is keyword research. So maybe talk about the process behind what we do to start that keyword research.
Yeah, absolutely. The first and foremost, you need to understand your audience. You need to understand those that you are looking to get in front of. Okay. What kind of things are they likely to type in Google to find, or any other search engine, but we mainly deal with Google just because it's, dominates the landscape right now. But what are they likely to type into that search engine in order to find the product or service that you are looking to offer? Okay, so you want to have keywords on the main pages of your site with those services that are some kind of high intent. You're not necessarily at this point looking for people that are just kind of tire kicking. You want to try and hit them with, that's what they're looking for. They're ready to make that purchase. They're ready to provide you with their information. They're ready to kind of start that conversation with you in some capacity. So we typically look for the main pages, we look for those keywords that have that high intent that people are going to type in, and they are going to have, that there's a good chance that they're going to want to get in contact with you to use the services or to purchase the products that you are offering. We personally, there's a multitude of ways that you can do keyword research. Here at Merge, we don't deal with just one way of doing it. We actually use multiple different tools. One of the most important tools that you can use is Google itself. All right. So you can type into Google, and a great thing is you can do it with any search. You want to search something in Google right now, then do that. And if you scroll to the bottom, you've got the people also asked. Okay. You can get a lot of really valuable keywords because you don't just rank for one keyword on one page and that's it. Some pages can rank for thousands of keywords. Okay, so as much as you're going to have a primary keyword that you want to focus for on that page, you also want to have a lot of keywords that are surrounding that keyword that also have search volume that you can also rank for. You don't want to just focus in on that one keyword and be like, okay, my job's done. You want to be answering a lot of questions on your page and going after some more of those long tail keywords, because the volume might not be anything crazy. A long tail keyword might only have 20 search volume every month. However, you start to rank for 10 or 20 of those 20, then you start to get up into the 200 or 400 searches a month you can potentially go for.
I think it's so important to note this because a lot of people who don't really understand SEO, they come to the table, they come to us and they say, oh, I want to rank for real estate Oakville. It's like, oh, that's cool. Okay, it gets decent amount of searches. There's also a lot of competition, and the keyword difficulty is tricky. So that's where we would really have to go into that research side of it to figure out some of those longer tail keywords. Because at the end of the day, our goal is not to have you rank number one for real estate Oakville, for example, or travel agent Toronto. Our goal is to increase the overall traffic across the board. Right. And I think that's the big misconception that a lot of people have with SEO. It's like, oh, I want to rank number one here. Yeah, that would be nice. But, there's better opportunities to get better traffic across the board on those longer tail keywords. And I think that's a great point.
No, absolutely. And yeah, you know what? Trying to rank for those terms, those main key terms, that's very basic and easy keyword research. Okay, it's not difficult to figure out that you're looking for, if I'm looking for a real estate agent in Oakville as an example, or in Toronto for you mentioned travel agent in Toronto or something. What you need to understand is that you've got to be a little creative with this, because especially if you're starting out, those are keywords that people and everybody's going after. They are extremely competitive. Okay, so everybody's going for them. You want to try and differentiate yourself, and you want to try and, have them as the main keywords that you do want to go for. But like you said, also pick up on those other keywords that other people aren't necessarily going for, or should we call it the low-hanging fruits. Keywords are extremely important, and we do use a multitude of tools. Obviously, Google is a really, really good tool in which you can identify other keywords that are closely related to that main term that you are looking to go for. But just a couple of examples of tools that we personally use here at Merged. Ahrefs is one of them, and SEMrush, you may have heard of them. They are paid subscriptions, but the wealth of information on both of those tools is just crazy. And that they have a lot of data and a lot of information on a lot of keywords to give you a sense of whether it's worth going for or not, in terms of its difficulty, in terms of how many searches it does get every month. You think about it, everybody is going to go after that main keyword of travel agent Toronto. It's very easy and basic keyword research. Everybody's going after that. And guess what? If everybody's going after that, it's going to make it more difficult to rank for that particular keyword. So get a little creative with this. Figure out keywords that are closely related to that main keyword, variations that might, potentially be easier to go for, especially if you're starting out. Your site doesn't necessarily have the authority that you need in order to rank for those big keywords.
Awesome. Cool. So page speed, obviously very important. Can you talk a little bit about the design? How important is that design, the page speed, and what are some of those hacks that people out there with websites right now can do on their own to improve that page speed?
Yeah, absolutely. So page speed is extremely important. It's a very high important ranking factor when it comes to Google. You've always got to think about this when it comes to a website, okay? And whether it comes to kind of your content creation or the design of your website or whatever it might be, is that you've got to put yourselves in the shoes of the person that is using that site, okay? Now, just got to think how frustrated you get if it takes 10 seconds for you a page to load and then you go on it. I mean, how long do you personally give it before you go, I'm out, I'm done, this is just, I don't have the patience for this. So you want to get those page speeds down into kind of sub 2 seconds. You want it to be lightning quick. You want it to be there. What you also want to do is you want to make sure that you're optimizing images, and you want to reduce and compress your images as much as possible so that the file size of them is as limited as possible. You don't want to be having to load. You don't want a bigger image to load and it takes more time to load that bigger image. You want to really minify that and take all of your images down to the smallest possible size that you can. Also, one of the biggest things that I see when I'm working with websites, especially when clients come into us, is there is so much code bloat. There are so many kind of plugins and all this kind of stuff that are thrown into the back of these websites. There is just so much code there. And Google has to go through it, and everything. It all needs to be crawled. It all needs to be made sure, that all of that information is gone through so it can put it in front of you, right? If you can minimize that, okay, and it's very difficult unless you have, you're a developer. Then obviously you're not going to be able to go in and custom code everything. I totally get that. But it's, I'm going to say that, using plugins to resolve things on websites is not always the best way to do it. You don't want to have your website, you don't want to have 20 plugins in the back to kind of make use of all these wonderful different features that you've got. Some of those plugins can be replaced with just a very simple piece of code, and it might mean that you have to use a developer in order to do that. But it's highly recommended, okay? You just think the more the information that's in the back end that something needs to go through, the longer it's going to take. So you really just need to minimize and minify that as much as possible.
That's good. That's awesome. Great insight there. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about Google Core Vitals update, which is going to have a direct impact on exactly what Wayne's talking about here, which is the speed of your site. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up at 1 o'clock today. But next, talk a little bit about, because I know a lot of people out there might have had a website designed years ago and it was never designed for a mobile device. And obviously, and being responsive to not just mobile, not just just a mobile phone, but iPad and all these other devices out there. Maybe talk about the importance of that. Is it important for a site to be mobile optimized in 2021?
Absolutely, because Google indexes pages on the search engine mobile first. So that just kind of speaks to the importance that Google is placing on having a website that is responsive to mobile. Okay, if they're indexing your pages mobile first, then what you need to make sure is that the design of your website fits within that mobile device. You think of it from this perspective as well. As much as something takes forever to load, it loses you. You go onto a site that isn't optimized for mobile. It's not responsive. It's not fitting to the size of the screen that you're currently operating on, and there are elements that are missing for it. And this is just from an optics standpoint. It doesn't look like you've put a lot of effort and a lot of care into your website. It kind of, and people are going to look at that as a reflection of your business. They're going to say, well, if they're not willing to invest in making my experience with them online a good experience, then how is the actual experience going to be with them when I start getting on the phone to them? It just puts a negative kind of, it starts off on a negative kind of foot there. And that's obviously something that you don't want. First impressions are everything.
Yeah. And I think in addition to that, it's so important that a lot of traffic that is hitting your website might be coming from a social media channel. And if they're coming from a social media channel, there's a very, very good chance, I think it's like 80 or 90% of people are looking at social on a mobile phone. So it obviously, if that experience is coming from a mobile to your website, your website needs to load quick and be optimized for that user that's viewing it on a mobile device. So I'm sure a lot of you out there with websites, just go take a look right now on your mobile phone at your website and see if you think that is a good user experience. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat there on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any questions for Wayne or SEO, if anything is murky, just let us know. But lastly, I want to talk about Wayne about SEO friendly URL structure.
Ooh,
okay.
Love that.
What exactly? A lot of people out there are like, what? Say that again. Gesundheit. SEO friendly URL structure. What does that mean? And what can somebody do on their website to ensure that it is SEO friendly?
Absolutely. And this is, again, one of the biggest kind of challenges that we see when clients come to us. They've built websites without SEO in mind, and that's completely understandable. Okay. When you're building a website, you just want to have something up online, you want to have a presence. And a lot of people that have built their websites was pre-pandemic, right? I think that there's been a huge cultural shift right now, and a lot of people are realizing, crap, I need to be online. Visibility online, digital visibility right now is crazy important because, you might have a brick and mortar location business, okay? And then you're not online. Well, it's very challenging right now to get any kind of business, and this is why a lot of people obviously have struggled. Okay. Now, if there is the opportunity for you to be online, then that's great, but it's not enough to just be online right now. You need to be online and you need to be found. Okay. And again, I don't think a lot of people have necessarily thought about this too much, especially kind of smaller businesses, local businesses, because they've just been, operating how they've been operating. They do a little bit of local advertising in papers or whatever it might be, but word of mouth and all of that kind of stuff. And people come, and that's great. However, what do you do now that that's not the case? So let me delve into having a website is obviously a great thing. It's it's one of the biggest sales tools that you can have in your arsenal, in your marketing. However, you got to understand that with a website, you've got to appease two different groups here. You've got to appease your users, but you've also got to appease a robot. You've got to appease an algorithm. You've got to appease something that it's not human. It doesn't know and doesn't process information the same way that we do. Okay. You've really got to tell Google that this is what my site is about. So I'll give you an example. Okay. Let's just say we'll go into dentistry again. I use a lot of dentistry examples, but it applies to every single website. I own Wayne's Dentistry. I live in Brantford, Ontario right now. So I'm going to say that Wayne's Dentistry is in Brantford, Ontario. Okay. I offer a lot of different services under Wayne's Dentistry. Okay. I offer teeth whitening. I offer dental implants. I offer teeth extractions. I offer general checkups. I offer all of this kind of stuff. Okay. Now, if I put all of that information onto one page and said, okay, there's my website. Great. I've got everything on there. I'm good. That's great for somebody that finds it because they can see all this kind of stuff and they can go, oh, okay, that's interesting. However, for a robot crawling that information, I put so many different things on there that it doesn't know what, if a keyword is typed in, for somebody who's looking for dental implants, it doesn't know if this is going to be a relevant result to put in front of people because there's so much information on this page that it's like, well, that's not dedicated to dental implants. I don't think that that's the best possible result. So what you would want to do is you're going to have your basic sitemap. Everybody's going to have a home page. You're more than likely going to have like an about us page. Then you're going to have like a contact us page. You might have things in between that. But what you're really going to want to do is you're going to want to break it down into every single service you offer. Every service is going to have its own dedicated page. Okay. And this kind of goes back to what you referenced with domain selection at the beginning, Jay, and we mentioned having that keyword in there. Now, if you can have that keyword in there, that's great. However, you're then going to have waynesdentistry.ca/something. Okay. Now, where I'm going to want to break down those services, I'm going to want to have a page that is dedicated to dental implants. I'm going to want to have a page that is dedicated to teeth whitening. I'm going to want to have a page that is dedicated to tooth extraction. I'm going to want to have dedicated pages for every single service I offer so I can effectively optimize those pages. And what I'm going to have is it's going to say waynesdentistry.ca/services/dental implants. I've got the keyword dentistry right at the beginning, and I've got dental implants there. First signal to Google. Right there. Okay, this page is about dental implants. Great. Okay. Then you're going to do the same with everything else. And you're gonna map out each and everything. So for a realtor, you could do it in terms of, it might be, if you're operating in a certain geography. In Brantford, we have Brantford obviously as the city, but we have West Brant, we have the North End. We have, downtown, we have Eagle Place. There are different areas. So what you would want to do is if you're selling property, as an example, in that specific area, you're probably going to want to have a dedicated page to Eagle Place, to West Brant, to the North End, all of these kind of things, because it's helping to build that relevancy and it's helping to clearly identify to Google that this is a page about this specific thing. So what it's then going to say is it's going to crawl through that information and say, I can quite easily now determine what that page is geared towards. So I think that I can quite confidently say that this is going to answer that query from the user. So I'm going to put that in front of them. Does that break it down? Does that make
100%? That makes total sense. And this is a recurring theme that we talk about a lot today is, how SEO, people think SEO and like social media advertising are two separate entities, but they actually can work in tandem. And this is a great example because let's say, what'd you call it? West Brom? What was that part of Brantford that you're talking about?
West Brant.
West Brant. If you're in West Brant and you're doing West Brant condos and that wants to be your niche market, we talked a lot today about niche, picking that niche in whatever business you're in, and you pick West Brant condos and that's your market. You create that sub page or that sub URL, West Brant condos. And now if people hit that page, you can set it up so the retargeting happens where on Facebook or Instagram, they see something very specific to West Brant condos. It's just staying top of mind with that user when they're coming in through the SEO direct traffic, and then you remain top of mind with the social traffic, right? Or with the social advertising. And that's why they do work really well together if they're set up correctly.
Oh, absolutely. And what I will say is that if you know the geography, if you know a specific city, you know the areas in which you would likely like to purchase a property. Okay. I know in Brantford, there are certain areas that I prefer over other areas. So, you're building that and the keywords are definitely going to be there. People are looking and searching for houses in West Brant. People are searching for houses in the North End of Brantford. People are searching for that. And then once you land on that page, you also know that you're in the right place because once you've optimized that page correctly, you've got that great structure. So you're telling Google, hey, you should give this result to somebody because, I've broken it down so easily for you. I've not confused it. I've not put all of the properties on one page for all of these different places and said, figure it out. You're spoon feeding Google, hey, this page is for this keyword. This page is for this keyword. This page is for this keyword, and so on. It just makes it very easy in that respect. And plus, once it does come up in the search engine, somebody clicks on that page and they land on that page, the experience is going to be great because they know that they're in the right page. They're going to start seeing properties in that area, and they're going to know, oh, okay, cool. I'm where I need to be. I've searched for this. I found it. I know I'm where I need to be now. So, you know, happy days with that. You know, the query I put into Google has come back with something highly relevant.